Okay, we are recording. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming today for the Jisc Edtech Challenge presentation. We've got Paul Bailey and Lawrie Phipps who will be taking over the presentation in a moment. I'm Matthew White. I'm a communications assistant at Jisc, so I'm just here to set things up and then sort of hand over to the experts. We're using Zoom today to run the presentation, so hopefully you're all logged into the app. It should be working fine. You've got, you should have audio options at the bottom left of your screen. So you can use that to just make sure everything's working for you correctly. There's also a chat option. If you sort of scroll along the bottom of the screen, if you click on that, you'll see a webinar chat window open. Some of you have been using that already. Please feel free to introduce yourselves. As we said, one of the peccadillos of Zoom is that it'll automatically set it up so that if you type into the chat window, only the panelists, that's the people who can speak into the microphones, can actually see what you write. So if you write into there and just select all panelists and attendees from the drop-down box, it'll be easier for everybody to read. So Paul and Lawrie are going to do a short presentation, and then there'll be a Q&A session at the end of it. So if you've got a question, please just stick it in the chat window, and then the guys will read through it and we'll answer the question at the end. We'll be recording the session and we'll make the recording available later this week. And I think that's me done. So Paul and Lawrie, over to you.
Thank you very much, Matthew. I'll start off and now I'm going to hand over to Lawrie. Do you want to do a quick introduction of who you are, Lawrie, first?
Yeah, I'm Lawrie Phipps. I work for the Jisc research and development team, which is called Futures. My area that I'm working on currently is a whole range of things, but one of the areas is next generation digital learning and what the impact is for staff and students.
Okay, and I'm Paul Bailey. I've been working on various areas of EdTech that we've been doing in Jisc for the last about 5 years. We've been running some student competitions called the Summer Student Innovation, which some of you might know about. We've also been supporting startup projects and companies for the last few years. So this is I wouldn't say new, but it's a slightly different strand on what we're taking, a different take on the idea of the EdTech Challenges ideas and getting ideas from people for things. So we're gonna talk through that and explain to you how you can get involved. Thanks for coming along. Okay, I'm driving, aren't I? So there we go. Over to you, Lawrie, to introduce that and tell me when you want the next slide.
Okay, so the first challenge that we came up with is the virtual learning environment without a screen. And what we mean by that is we're looking for ideas that talk about different interfaces. We're not looking, it doesn't mean that you can't have a screen for this virtual learning environment. What we're saying is that with AI, with AR, with voice interfaces and things like that, what does that bring to the learning environment? What are the changes that that's bringing to what's going on? And if Paul just advances the slide for me. So we've been looking at virtual learning environments, and we ran a co-design challenge in 2016. And we look back at over 20 years of what's gone before. Virtual learning environments were first conceived of in the 90s. And the virtual learning environments that we have now are still grounded in some of those activities and some of those approaches. But of course, digital has changed, the internet's changed dramatically, and the way students behave has also changed. So we've been looking at next generation of learning environments in terms of what does that mean in terms of increased ownership of mobile devices. We've got more accessibility and inclusion needs that we need to address. Students want more flexible learning. Students have got this device that sits in their pocket. They want to access it whenever they need to. So it's not just about flexibility of when they access it, but also flexibility of space. And that includes digital space. And we've said changes to learning paradigms. And that might be the move from constructivism to more collaborative approaches such as rhizomatic learning. And of course, all of the learning spaces that we now teach in are more digitally enabled. The rooms that you're probably in now are accessing Wi-Fi. Whereas 20 years ago, when virtual learning environments were first conceived of, we probably didn't have Wi-Fi throughout the institutions that we worked in. Next slide, Paul. Technologies that we want people to start thinking about are things like artificial intelligence, voice interfacing tools. You know, the main competitors are already out there. We're not sort of looking to reinvent voice interfacing tools, but what can those main market leaders bring to virtual learning, and what can it bring to digital in an institution? We've also got gesture-based interfaces. For somebody like me, who's always waving his hands around when he's talking, that can be a problem. But some gesture-based interfaces are really intuitive, and we see that with the augmented reality goggles, and we also see it with computer screens that people don't actually need a keyboard sometimes for typing. For those of you that know me, a lot of my work over the last 10 years, over the last 20 years, was to do with people with disabilities. So what can technology do that supports emerging issues that are brought about by the changes in practice for people with disabilities? Can we have more intuitive interfaces that automatically adjust for those sorts of things that need to be adjusted? I don't want to sort of prescribe a whole load of things that need to be done, but the other thing that we need to address, of course, is that new legislation is on the books, and we also have to make our learning accessible now by legislation. Natural language dictation software, we probably all had a go at dictation software many years ago when it was very difficult and you had to train dictation software. But walking down to this office today, I was using, for example, Google Notes, and of course other note-taking apps are available, and I was actually dictating a paper that I'm writing to Google Notes when I had an idea, and I was able to do that straight onto my device just by speaking into this microphone, and it probably got about 90% of the text right. And of course the other thing that I'm doing at the moment is I have some wearable technology, if people can see that. For those of you that know me, I'm trying to lose weight, and the wearable technology helps me to keep fit. Well, what can wearable technology tell us about learning? What does it tell us about student engagement? Are there things that we can do around wearable technology that's going to enhance and support the student learning experience? And all of these things are things that we want people to think about, but we're not actually prescribing these approaches. Next slide, Paul. So this is the challenge. In terms of what we're looking for, what would a learning environment of the future look like without the constraints of a computer, phone, or tablet screen? Paul, do you want to take over and talk through some of that?
Yeah, so we're looking for your ideas. We're not looking for products that you've built necessarily, or anything that's anywhere more than just an idea or concept that you think would work. So it's what's the sort of problem you're trying to address? What's the solution? I've bracketed the word virtual. The word virtual learning environment tends to imply certain products in the space. I think we're open to any sort of interpretation of what the learning environment means, or interfacing to any sort of product or whatever you're actually using in the learning space. So we're trying to keep the constraints of this challenge quite open. We don't want to close it down. So if it's about bringing those sorts of technologies together to enable learning, we're probably quite interested to hear your idea.
And it is just an idea. We're not looking for fully working prototypes here. We're looking for somebody who said, do you know what, if I had the technical skills or if I had the support, I could build this. So it's actually, it's wide open. If you've thought about something, if you've had one of those epiphanies in the shower or walking to work or driving to work, then what does it look like? How can we talk about that challenge and what can we do with it?
Okay. So I don't know whether any of you have got as far as clicking on the link which says submit your idea, but basically what you'll come to is a very, very simple web form. It asks for a bit of personal information, i.e. your name, email address, telephone number, so we can contact you if you win the prize. Also, we just want a short description, a short title for your idea, just so we've got something that would reference it. And it's usually good as well, just to have something that really captures it in a few characters. Then we've suggested a description. It's an open text field. The web form box is quite small. Don't be deceived by that. You can post in as much as you like. We've suggested a maximum of about 1,000 words. Basically, with your idea, if you can sort of describe in there what's the problem, what it is you're trying to solve, what's the problem you're trying to address with this. If you've got some idea of how you'd see it working, not technically necessarily about how it would work, although that would be quite interesting, and who is trying to benefit. So try and capture that vision, that idea of what the whole idea will do, how it will help people, how it will improve learning. It's probably easier, although it might be more time, to create a small video that describes this. So you can just do a talking head to your laptop or to your phone or something like that, just to describe it. If you've got any pictures, do a voiceover PowerPoint type presentation,
or even an animation,
or a little animation. Yeah. Certainly the students in the past competitions used to use quite some animation software there, which was very, very effective at getting over the ideas.
And you can get some great animations out of PowerPoint as well.
Yeah. So, or any other media. So basically there's a field there for you to put a link. So host it on YouTube, host it anywhere you want, as long as it needs to have open access so we can get to it. There's a field there to say if you've got any team members. So if you've come up with this idea with another group of people, then please list them there, give them some acknowledgement of them inputting to it. The other reason we want that is I'll come on to it later, but we've got some other activities that we want to follow on from this, and we would like to invite, particularly initially we're looking at groups of students to a follow-on event to this around a slightly different topic. So if there are team members, we'd be quite interested in teams coming along to that. We are looking to run some more hackathons. We run an Intelligent Campus hackathon over the summer. We'd be interested in inviting teams of people to come along to those, some themes that we've got coming along around hackathons in the future. So that's why, partly why we're asking for team members, so you can bring them along. You have to accept the terms and conditions. I know people don't normally go and read these, but it is probably worth having a skim through them. But you must accept those to submit your idea. So any of you who've been involved with or interested in the Summer Student Innovation in the past will know that that was a student-led competition. We've opened this up. There are still some entry requirements. We will only take people, you must be 18 or over. We'll only work with people who are 18 and over. It's just a simplicity for us in terms of safeguarding issues and things. So you must be 18 or over to enter the competition. We require you to be based in or studying in the UK. That's partly so that you can engage with the events and activities that we might do to follow on these. But it's also around the remit of Jisc that we want to work with UK companies, staff, students, universities, colleges, etc. It is open to staff as well as students. It's also open to entrepreneurs or businesses or anyone. The only restriction is not open to Jisc staff. And that's competition law, means that Jisc staff can't submit to this competition. The prize, okay. We used to run lots of events and try and build these, but pretty much you enter the competition. We will shortlist 10 ideas. Those 10 ideas will be showcased on our blogs and our websites, and probably in some reports that we produce. We will select the best idea that we feel, and that idea will receive a first prize of £1,000. Okay, £1,000 cash, no catches, no requirements after that at all. And there'll be 2 runners-up for 2 other ideas of £250. So it's quite straightforward. We'll be shortlisting ideas soon after the event, after the closing date on the 3rd of January. And as I said, we'll be blogging those, and hopefully we'll try and showcase them at our DigiFest in March, early March, isn't it again?
It is. It is early March.
12,
yep.
Something like that, yeah.
It's going to be great.
It always is. You will also, on the form, as we have to with the new GDPR and data protection laws, you'll be asked to consent if you would allow us to hold your information and use it to hear about future events. I'd really encourage people to do this. Encourage students to consider been involved. And the reason is what we're looking to do is we'll use people who consent to that. We can carry on to hold your information to let you know about future challenges. I should have probably said at the beginning. So previously we used to run one competition like this a year, and we're now looking to run 3 this year around different challenge themes. And hopefully going forward after this year, we'll look to increase that to more challenges and get more of a rolling sort of profile of challenges going out that people can participate in. We've also, as I suggested earlier, we've got a consultation workshop coming up after this one. It happens to be around the theme of health and well-being, and we'll be inviting some students along to participate in that workshop in January. So consenting would allow students to continue to stay in touch with us, and we can do that. We've got some hackathon events we want to plan coming forward. And I've even been told I may be allowed to revisit and do the design sprint that we used to do over the summer, where we invited student teams along to come and work on their ideas and develop them further. I think we'd open that up and we'd make it staff teams as well going forward, and just try and work up some of these ideas into better designed products and solutions. And we're not excluding the idea that we would maybe work with people to develop some of these, but that's not a promise on the table at the moment. And just linked to that last point around intellectual property. Basically, what you post up, you're agreeing to your idea and anything you submit being shared in the public domain. So if you did have the sort of next blueprint for some new software design or integration, you might want to think twice about posting it onto the public. You could describe it in some other way, but you keep it quite generic. There's nothing that actually you would post up that actually can be copyrighted or anyway. An idea is just a concept anyway that anyone can have. If you have background IP or a product or anything like that, then you do need to protect it, but we won't be looking to take that from you. You will always be free to develop the ideas that you put in there in the future. We're taking no ownership of your ideas. It's your idea. And if we do decide that we'd like to develop it, if we find the next big thing that would be worth developing, we will come and talk to you and we'll have some discussions and we'll agree how we want to take that forward. But my experience of doing this in the past for the last 4 or 5 years with student ideas and projects is it's actually quite a difficult thing to do, and working with startup companies. So, expectations are quite low there. But if there are good ideas and we want to take them forward, we might look to explore them in some way, maybe develop a prototype and see whether we can go a bit further. But as I say, there's no promises on the table for that at the moment. Okay, that's all about the EdTech Challenges competition. I've just got 2 more slides to go. First thing is to say this EdTech Challenges competition, as I say, is one of 3 that we're going to do over the next year, next academic year. It's also a part of our whole approach to supporting EdTech innovation. So we're also we run a pre-accelerator program where we identify new startup companies that we want to work with. We invest with Emerge Education in an accelerator program that takes more later stage startups and companies. And we're looking to do some more work now, working with institutions and startups to help embed them into institutions and encourage the take up there. What we have at the moment, at about the same time, we've also opened up an EdTech startups competition. So these are for early stage startups, but there are, from where we sort of focus at the moment, it's startup companies with a product that's focused around EdTech in the UK. So we've got a competition open there now. The deadline is on the 21st of January. If you have any questions on that, please get in touch with me. But they are really for companies that have got an established product and are looking to get into start piloting it or are already piloting with universities or colleges in the UK. And we run that in partnership with the Emerge Education. Okay. So That was quick. It's quite simple. I mean, there's nothing particularly complicated about this challenge, apart from coming up with some good ideas. So over to you for any questions. Type them into the chat panel, and we'll read them out and do our best to answer them. There's Lawrie and I's contact details if you want them, and also the link through to the Launchpad site. Give you a couple of minutes to think of any questions you've got.
Paul, can you see the question there? We're being asked by Simon what the timescales are.
Yeah, so the competition closing date, I think, did I omit to put this in the entire slide? That was very slack. They're on the website, but it's the 3rd of January, and it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So you've got to the end of the working day on the 3rd of January.
And Daniel wants to know if the prize comes in a cash envelope or vouchers.
We will pay it into a bank account, okay? It is money. It's not vouchers. It's not Amazon vouchers or anything like that. It's actually a payment to a bank account.
Paul, the question from Sally: how did we decide on the challenge?
That's a very good question. We've decided to look at challenge areas that relate to areas of work that we're interested in within Jisc, that have come about where we've had sort of existing sort of consultation with the sector and found out it's quite interesting. So this particular area has come out of partly from the work that Lawrie's been doing around next generation learning environments. And it just seemed to be quite opportune in terms of a lot of the other work that was coming out, which was merging around things like the what is it called? Internet 4.0, is it? What is it? Industry 4.0, and the sort of emerging artificial intelligence and use of sort of voice controls and things like that seem to be coming up. So it's come out of that. It's come out of our talks with the sector, and also from some of the ideas that have come from our students as well. So we thought this was a space that we could look at. I mean, we've got a list. We had quite a few other ones. Yeah.
There is some stuff on there's a question about Industry 4.0. There's some stuff on the Jisc website about Industry 4.0, but industry, that term is actually coming out of government.
Yeah, so it's that whole area of big data, artificial intelligence, robotics, that seems to be in the emerging tech field at the moment, and how that's going to impact on industry generally. So yeah, robots taking over the world type thing. Yeah.
From Mike Wilson: hi, the judging criteria focused on the quality of the idea or the quality of the animation and the presentation material? I think that's a fairly easy question, Paul.
It's definitely on the quality of the idea, but obviously how well it's presented helps to influence that. So presentation is everything, isn't it? But it's definitely, we're looking at the quality of the idea. We
put virtual, so this is from Sally. She said you specifically put virtual in brackets. I think in terms of virtual, I mean, we have these things called virtual learning environments. The reality is that we have learning environments, and they can be digital, they can be physical. In the UK, we call them virtual learning environments. In the US, they call them learning management systems. We didn't want to get people focused on the idea that we were talking about the VLE. We want people to think about a much broader set of learning environments. That's why the virtual's in brackets.
Okay.
The next question is from Tom, who wants to see examples of submissions from previous challenges. This is actually our first challenge, isn't it, Paul?
It is our first challenge, but if you look for the Edtech Student Ideas competition from last year, or the Summer Student Innovation, if you could drop me an email, Tom, I'll send you some links to some pages and some examples of previous student ideas that came through. But this is our first challenge in the Edtech challenges. So we don't have examples from this, but we do from the student ideas, if that would be useful.
Sally's raised the question again and again about the learning environments, the parameters. we don't actually have parameters. It might be that you are looking at how students interact with a university system, but without actually just sitting in front of a computer. But it might be, for example, going into a room with a voice interface that allows you to interact and collaborate in a physical learning environment. It could be that you're interacting with the smart campus or the intelligent campus. We're not actually trying to fix any parameters. When we said the screenless virtual learning environment, what we're referring to is the fact that we've got all of this digital, we've got Wi-Fi, we've got all of this technology around us, but we tend to focus on the screen. And we want people to break away from the idea of focusing through this window and looking at digital through the window of the screen and thinking much wider about how you can interact in a much more intuitive or perhaps richer way with the technology around us.
Yeah, so partly it was a simplistic way, putting Alexa on top of your learning environments.
Or Google Assistant, or indeed Siri. Other voice bots are available.
Thank you, Lawrie. But the reason I bracketed the word virtual is to make people think a bit broader than that. And you say, but not physical. Actually, when we did the Intelligent Hackathon over the summer, we had a team from Teesside, great team, who came down and shared some ideas there. And they were looking at a sort of VR, AR lecture theatre. And it was, I suppose, another interpretation completely of the statement of a learning environment with no screens. Because instead of you having a projected screen, you saw the screen, or you saw the activity that was happening in the lecture through VR or AR. You could imagine it being a sort of, one of those green rooms almost, where what you see, you sit in the lecture theatre, there's nothing there, the lecturer might not even be there. In fact, wasn't there a BBC thing with I saw a hologram lecturer in a video just the other day?
Yeah, and it only costs tens of thousands of pounds to record each one.
Only costs tens of thousands of pounds to record each one, yeah. So, hologram, So,
but I do want people to be thinking about accessibility and inclusion. In fact, I'd rather people thought about inclusion. We're not looking for ideas that say, hey, look, we can put all these disabled students out in the field through VR. We need to go more than that. We need to be thinking about how it makes a richer experience, not a reduced experience.
Yeah. John's just saying he has been thinking exactly of that sort of almost immersive VR sandbox, and particularly provide access to simulations or to do things, that possibly can't be done in the physical environment. That can be quite useful.
And from Sally, inclusion of distance learners as well. Inclusion's a broad term, and when I talk about inclusion, I'm not talking just about students with needs in terms of physical or special educational needs, and I'm thinking much broader than that. How do we actually get disenfranchised learners to engage with digital? How do we get disenfranchised learners to engage with the classroom? What about working parents who are also learners? What about learners who are at distance? What about learners that don't have ubiquitous access to the internet? There's all sorts of learners that could be brought in through the use of digital. Anything that sort of ticks those boxes, that actually gets us thinking, that starts us down a path of thinking about making education more inclusive, is a good thing.
Yeah, I think quite often, if you come at these from the problem of what are the challenges of accessing learning if you are a mature student, or you've got childcare responsibilities, or you have to hold down a full job and study at other times, you can come up with quite inventive solutions and applications. So it might be that the best applications of something like this are not for your run-of-the-mill student who attends a 3-year degree at 18-year-old. It is all those exceptions who are quite a large number of students now within our population. So,
and I'd also say it doesn't have to address everybody's needs. Your idea might address just one particular section of your community, It might be that you can see an option that helps commuter students, for example, those students that are not actually based in halls of residence, but for financial reasons, for example, have to commute to university from quite a long distance away, and then go home in the evenings. What can you do to support them? Paul, there's another question here. Do you have the link to the slides for passing on to colleagues? Will you be putting the slides up as well as the recording?
We'll put the slides and the recording up on the web page. I shall also put them on my SlideShare account, which I should have done already.
And I'll tweet those out as soon as Paul sends me the links as well. So both Paul and I'll be tweeting out these.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we can tweet it out afterwards. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any more final questions, everybody? We're not seeing any more questions, and Zoom tells me that nobody's typing. So I think that's about it. It's 13:30. Thanks everybody for turning up and asking questions.
Thank you, and we look forward to seeing your ideas.
Don't forget, if you need anything, just either contact us through the emails that Paul's giving you there, or hit us up on Twitter, and we'll respond as soon as we can.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.